Hey everyone, so I'm here to celebrate another milestone and share a few of my findings. So at this point, I've tracked and recorded
120,000 rolls!
that's roughly 860 hours and 180 visits to a craps table. And if we break that down further, we're averaging 2 to 3 rolls per minute or approximately 140 rolls per hour. Now, I'm hoping you can find the value in this information because it's really hard to find folks that are dedicated to research of this nature and are just willing to put it out there. Trust me, I've looked. Because of my love and respect for the game, I put in the work for you, and hugely because I know, like myself, there are many players that ask questions and are just curious about what happens throughout the progression of roles. For me, the first question I had was, are there trends or any consistencies that I can take advantage of? Well, through this record of 120,000 rolls, I've decoded some of the randomness, and I hope to leave you with a different perspective of the game and ultimately arm you with the power of information. All right, let's get to it. Now, before I start to show diagrams of my rolls, it would really help if you checked out my other video that shows how I tracked and recorded rolls. I included the link in this video's description below. If, like many players, you believe that craps is too chaotic, random, or complex to find patterns, I would like you to suspend your belief in these things for the next few minutes and allow me to show you some patterns throughout the rolls that I've tracked so far that seem to defy conventional beliefs about randomness. I'm going to do a little dice forecasting using the information of trends from the 120,000 tracked rolls I've recorded so far. So it starts with recognizing the pattern. I'm going to show you what has happened after a healthy dose of rolls. And by healthy, I mean what most craps players would identify as a hot roll. Let me explain. As you can see here, there were 4 or more rolls before 7 on consecutive rows. We are specifically looking for multiple rows of 5 or more rolls. Ultimately, we will be using probabilities based on the existing patterns from my 120,000 tracked rolls. Our hope, of course, is that 120,000 rolls is enough to make a well-informed guess and bet execution when this pattern shows up again. And I'm also hoping that the information I deduce from 120,000 rolls is good enough to plug into another million rolls and come out on top.
Yes!
Whenever you have 6 consecutive rows where the total rolls, including a 7, was 5 or greater, there's a quality bet that you can make that offers a high winning percentage, according to the 120,000 rolls I've tracked already. You're going to hear me repeat according to the 120,000 rolls I've tracked already, so that you're reminded that this theory is based off of pre-existing information and has no guarantee of being foolproof because of both a lack of information and our venture into the universe of randomness. This theory is still under construction, and I admit my lack of knowledge in statistics means that I have no view of the promised land. The promised land, of course, being an immutable law within the random flow or an undeniable, unequivocal edge over the house. I'm just sailing through the seas of probability and occasionally hitting landfall on these little islands of patterns. So, your confidence going forward lies in the rolls I've tracked so far. Okay, so now that this is hardwired into your brain, I'm not going to continue beating that dead horse. Let's move forward with the bet. Circling back to what I said earlier, whenever you have exactly 6 consecutive rows where the total rolls before and including a 7 was 5 or greater, or as I like to classify this type of roll, high output, there's a quality bet you can make that offers a high winning percentage. Whenever this hot streak has exhausted itself, which is indicated by a row of 4 or less rolls, or as I like to call it, a low output roll as shown here, we play the waiting game for a few rolls and wait for these perfect conditions as I have prescribed here. This is my key. The letters SMOK in the blue box is an identifier for the pattern called Smokestack. The 6 in the black box represent how many rows of 5 or more rolls meet the criteria for this pattern. The number 1 in the red box indicates the first instance of 5 or more rolls after the smokestack pattern, and after the first low output row. Remember, 4 or less is considered a low output roll. The brown box indicates the criteria before the bet execution. In this case, the criteria is 1, 2, or 3 rows of high output rows. The next light green box indicates the 6th instance of a high output series of rolls after the smokestack 6 pattern. The green box with the numbers 2, 3, and 4 indicates when a lay bet should be executed. Two means after the second consecutive row of 5 or more rolls are done, or after a 7 out. After the second consecutive high output row, execute a lay bet strategy that allows for 3 possible losses. Lay against all numbers and allow for a 7 to be rolled within the next 4 rolls. If a 7 does not roll by the 4th roll, remove all bets and employ a strategy that allows for a win within the next 2 rows. If a win does not happen within 3 consecutive rows of executing this bet, abort, accept loss, and wait for another smokestack pattern to occur. The betting strategy I prescribe has not lost in 120,000 rolls. If you try this strategy and you have an unfavorable outcome, I would definitely like to know, because that would be a significant event considering this pattern has gone so long without losing. There are a few variations to this smokestack pattern that involve greater quantity of consecutive rows of high output rolls. There's also a flip side to this pattern involving consecutive rows of low output rolls, rows with 4 or less rolls. I've named this pattern on the low output side the dugout pattern. So I just wanted to give you a taste of the pattern and a glimpse of my methods. In closing, I'd like to leave you with a few nuggets of trend tracking wisdom. If you rely solely on your eyes or intuition to identify patterns at the craps table, you will be fooled. Our brains are not wired for probability. Tracking rolls gives you a bird's eye view of patterns and gives you somewhat of an edge. Here's an example. On this particular visit, I stayed at the table for 8 hours. Nobody saw this pattern. For 8 hours, the fours and tens never went above 3 rolls during one series. I told all the players in my area that this trend was happening, even showed them my record of rolls, and no one took advantage of this. It persisted for hours. Instead, they were betting with their intuition, having periodic gains, but ultimately losing. With what I currently know about the flow of numbers, I can never rely on my intuition or eyes to win at craps again. I hope I've piqued your interest in dice counting and you're willing to give it a try. Please gamble responsibly and remember to have fun. I've done this long enough to know how people and energy influence rolls, but that's another study and another video. Thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your encounters with patterns throughout your roll tracking. If you'd like to go more in depth and learn about the hundreds of patterns I've discovered, we can set up a private session, or you can attend one of my workshops where I can help you identify patterns in real time through live gameplay. If you have any comments or suggestions or even personal stories about your experiences while playing craps and seeing patterns, it will be great if you actually track patterns. That would be great. I would love to hear about it. Just send me an email to crapsswinger@gmail.com. Well, that's it. Thanks.